I think the Mailgun was not one of the connectors that people were voting up as being popular, but I had some reasons for wanting to play with it and had done a little bit of work on it anyway, so I nominated it myself since I'd done most of the work already. And I think in terms of this connector of the month thing, I think one of the values of it is partly looking at the technical side, but also partly just learning about what's out there and why you might want to integrate with things. So I think it might be worth taking a minute look at Mailgun for a second and why you would potentially want to use it and integrate it into your app. So Mailgun is a mail service. One of our clients was using it a while back, and I had to do some work to integrate with it. And so I created an account for ourselves in Mailgun and have been using it a little bit. I would say it compares somewhat to Amazon's simple email service in terms of its reason for existence. It's a tool for sending out a lot of email. They advertise being able to send out 15 million emails in a short period of time. And I think for me, one of the main reasons that's valuable is that you don't necessarily want to send that through your own mail server. Not that I've ever sent out 15 million emails, but it's not that hard to damage your mail server's reputation. It's hard to send a lot of mail through Google because they're trying to protect their mail server's reputation and not have it be blacklisted. So having a mail service like Mailgun to help get emails out when you have non-spam, perfectly legitimate reasons to send lots of email, having a service like Mailgun available can be pretty handy. Once you've done the setup work with Mailgun, mail just goes. There's never a question about whether or not, I don't know if anybody's tried to work with Google, but if you try to send mail through their servers, and not just Google, Rackspace isn't that different. You can run into situations where mail doesn't get delivered, and it's hard to know why for sure. With Mailgun, once you've done the initial setup, the mail's just going to be delivered, period, if you have a valid email address. Pretty simple. They offer some other services, the ability to validate email addresses, the ability to help the deliverability of your email. But at the core, Mailgun's a reliable mail delivery system. And by integrating it into a FileMaker app, you don't have to embed, you're not really using an SMTP server. You're handing off delivery to Mailgun. So there's no SMTP credentials in your FileMaker app. You don't have to expose that to anybody. And you don't have to have the potential hassle of having to manage SMTP credentials in there. So if your authentication email address changes or password changes, you don't have to go into your FileMaker app to fix that. So there's some good reasons why routing your mail through Mailgun might be handy. Connect also supports Amazon's SES, simple email service. So you've got a couple different ways of sending lots of email or for reliable email delivery through Claris Connect. The way Mailgun works is you have to first do some setup in your Mailgun account to define a sending subdomain. So I created this mg.portagebay.com subdomain in Mailgun for sending email. And then the hardest part, I think for most people, it's fairly easy to set up this subdomain, and it's pretty easy to do the Claris Connect side of things. And for me, this next part was easy, but for other people, it might not be. And that is you have to create 5 different DNS entries in the zone manager for your domain name server. So these top 2 here, this pic.domain key, the mg.portagebay.com SPF text DNS record, and then a couple of MX records for the mg.portagebay.com domain. I guess that's only 4 DNS changes, but getting all those created correctly if you're not a little bit familiar with DNS, might be a bit of a challenge, or you'd have to have somebody else do it for you. Once the domain setup, once the DNS setup's done, the actual Claris Connect stuff is simple as can be. You define a script trigger in FileMaker. So for me, this trigger is being called from a script, and we've looked, I think, practically in every one of these Claris Connect meetups, we've looked at creating a trigger in FileMaker to call a flow in Connect. So I'm not going to go look at that. Suffice it to say, it's the same script that we've looked at before, with a slightly different JSON package being passed into Claris Connect. And then I created the second step in the flow here, which is the action, which is sending my email. And all that one's doing is accepting, or it's parsing out a few little bits from my data passed from FileMaker, the body, the to address, the from address, the subject line, and the body. And when I created that action, I had to put in my API key from Mailgun. So I had gone into Mailgun here and gone into my account section to API keys and grabbed an API key from here to paste into Claris Connect when I defined this Mailgun action. And that was pretty much it. The nice thing there is if I switch over to FileMaker, this is my script in FileMaker. I just created a really quick test script down here. The first one is defining the JSON object with my to, from, subject, and body emails. And the second one is the second script is calling the trigger that calls Claris Connect. And this is one of those slightly unusual things as a developer. This script worked the very first time. It took me about 10 minutes. Well, it took me a little bit longer because I had to set up those DNS entries, but it took almost no time to, I copied and pasted in the API key, changed the parameters in this object to be the to, from, subject, and body, called the script with that parameter, tested it, and my test email showed up in my inbox. No troubleshooting of SMTP parameters. Because Claris Connect has my API key in it, I didn't have to put any usernames and passwords or anything in here. And like I said, I don't have any SMTP credentials in this database. So if I was delivering this to a client, I could have my database sending me tech support emails or log emails or whatever I wanted. And I don't have any SMTP credentials at the client side. So I think this, I think using Mailgun this way is pretty handy, and we've talked about adopting this more broadly because of the fact that you don't have to embed anything in your client's database in terms of credentials. The one thing that's a little bit, I wouldn't call it a hassle exactly, but an issue, this script trigger is specific to this FileMaker database. It has my login credentials for this specific FileMaker database in it. So if I wanted to use this across the board, if I wanted to send Mailgun emails out of my FileMaker databases more broadly, I would really have to create, I might have to create separate flows for each database, or possibly add an extra parameter that I'm sending in and using conditionals in I don't know if I could do that. Anyway, I'd have to figure out some way to handle the fact that I have to use a separate script trigger for each solution. And that's pretty much it for Mailgun. Can I answer any questions from anybody?
There's a question in the chat. It says, can you send attachments with the email?
Yes. That was more complicated than I wanted to get for this particular purpose. And when we're sending logging commands or commands, but logging emails or alert notifications, error notifications, we wouldn't typically be doing an attachment for that. So I didn't really put much thought into that, but Mailgun certainly does support attachments. That's for sure.
Are there any other, oh, somebody just asked, can you send SMS from there?
SMS, no. Mailgun, at least I don't think so, actually. Let's see here. I don't think so. I think Mailgun specifically specializes in email. The Claris Connect has a Twilio integration connector, so you can send SMSs with Twilio also. And the cost of that, depending on what you're doing, of course, it all depends on what you're doing. The cost of Mailgun is like nothing. I mean, for what we've used Mailgun for so far, our monthly bill is like $1.50 or something like that. And I think for the way we would use Twilio, if we built a process workflow for a client that involved some notifications about upcoming appointments or something like that, I think our Twilio pricing would be similar because the amount of SMSs going out would be tiny. On the other hand, if you were using Mailgun or Twilio to send out, I think of a good example, I think I get some of my vendors, I think AT&T sends me a text message when my current mobile bill is due or is sent out. So I imagine their SMS bill is a little higher because they're sending out millions of text messages. But Twilio is very cheap for what in my mind is normal usage for the types of clients we work with. Someone asked another question: do you set reply to your normal email address? Yes. Yeah, Mailgun just does whatever it has to do for you on that.
I mean, it seems like send mail is the most useful action, but are there any other actions or triggers associated with Mailgun?
Yeah, good one. I don't think there's any triggers. I think it has 3 actions: send mail, and then it has a couple of actions for maintaining lists. So Mailgun, you can, in addition to sending an individual email, you can trigger adding a person to a list, and I think removing the person from a list. Let me double check that here. Yeah, add member to list and remove member from list. Yeah, setting up your mailing lists in FM. Yeah, you can certainly, I don't know if you can, I haven't tried to do that with Mailgun, but the tools that Connect is giving you, add to mailing list and remove from mailing list, seems to imply that you probably have to define the list in Mailgun ahead of time to be able to add and remove people from it using Connect. I haven't tried to do that though.